Welcome, everybody, to the Real Dealz podcast, one of the top-ranked real estate investing podcasts for the last 7 years. This is the place to be for investing strategies you can actually use, expert interviews, and, of course, some good old-fashioned entertainment. Now, here's your host for the show, Elliot, the REI guy, Smith.
What's going on, Real Dealz podcast listeners? We are here with show 392. Been a really busy couple of last weeks. I apologize for not getting a show out last week. I think I'm 2 for 4 this month. So it's just every day I'm like, oh, I'll get it done tomorrow. I'll do the show tomorrow. And then just something comes up. Just been hectic. We're trying to get this 32 unit closed. I think we're tying up another 30 plus unit. We got the verbal yesterday and we got it closed by the end of the year. So trying to figure that out, get everything planned in place for doing our remodel on the one we're closing on the 23rd. We've been tying up some single family houses, doing some deals. So just been a really busy couple of weeks, and then just a lot of good things going on with the call center and our SWAT teams. So I will do better, I promise. But anyway, what is going on this week? So this week we dropped a bunch of marketing out for some houses and for our multifamily. These were our specialty pieces that we've done from Tucker's DFA program for years. Response rate was freaking great. Usually when we drop these out, we're getting a 5% response rate. So had a lot of phone calls yesterday that came into this into our team. Pretty excited about that. The letters for the houses, we got an appointment today for a house that I think we'll buy. But the multifamily ones, they're very similar mailers, but the multifamily ones, really, we have a list of about 1,000 multifamily deals that we would like to buy. My whole thing on those are a lot longer plays, kind of like the development and dirt plays and things like that Tucker's done through the years. And what I tell my team is we're just trying to go send these out, and we're trying to make friends with 100 people that own multifamily. So they will sell eventually. I just want to be their first call when they do. So how do we make friends with them? One, we get them on the phone and talk to them first. Once we build that relationship, that rapport, then they get into a follow-up system where we're sending them Christmas cards, Happy New Year cards, Thanksgiving. Maybe randomly we're just sending them a $5 Starbucks gift card. If it's a really good property, maybe we're sending them a Christmas basket. We're sending them, it's more customized. If we can figure out who they are, we can send a customized gift basket, things like that. So really, we've bought a lot of multifamily this year and we're extremely busy. And if I get this 31 unit, we're not going to need a ton more, but we can assign these out and make really good assignment fees. And so again, if our goal from the very beginning is just to go be friends with as many people that own buildings as possible, then we keep pushing forward because we want to build that pipeline and that funnel. So pretty excited about that. We were running some numbers on our 25 unit that we closed on in May for 2.1 after diving into it. So we got an appraisal back for our new 32 unit, and that appraised really well, favorable for us from our purchase price. But they used this 25 unit as a comp, and in there they had it. We paid $87.5 a unit, and the appraiser underwrote it and said, no, this is probably $125 a unit. So just right there, that's what is that? 37.5 times 25. So pretty good equity gain just on paper there. I really think, though, after diving into it and what things are selling for, that it's probably a 3.3 building already. So pretty cool. When we just bought it, it's cash flowing really well. I just did a bunch of numbers last night. On average, with the rents that we turned 7 units, we've raised rents 18% on the units that we've turned. So we should get our rents up from $221,000 when we bought it a year. And I think we're going to be right in, what did I put in here? It was, I did it last night. I think we're going to be adding to be $293,640. and I think we'll get the operational expenses down quite a bit. So just right there, we have added so much value. We'll add so much value to the building, and they don't need a ton of work. But the cool thing about it is when we bought it, it was just a 24 unit, but it had like a manager's house kind of right in the center because it's kind of a U-shaped building, kind of like an older motel would look like. And there was a manager's house right in the center that kind of had some storage, but it had a kitchen, but nobody was using it as a unit. So we actually renovated it as a big 1-bedroom, and we got somebody in there paying $11.75 a month. So that's straight bottom line money. So pretty exciting there. The new building that we're looking at that I think we're getting, that we got the verbal on yesterday, pretty cool deal. We got it off a cold call lead, not call magic. It was a cold call lead from my sales manager, Tony. I gave him a list and like, hey, you need to go call these people. And they were actually about to list it that day when I talked to the seller on Friday. And so I called him, we talked to him for a while, and then he had a sister in the deal, and she was in Seattle. So I just happened to go door knock her with Monty on Saturday and hand delivered an offer to her as well. So you got to do what you got to do. But so I still go door knock. We still get deals from cold calling. I've talked about this for years. If I had no money, what I would go do is go cold call people that have bad, ugly houses. And you're going to get deals. I mean, it's still something that we use every single day. And the value of what we're going to make on this deal, if we do end up closing it, and the equity gains is just going to be exponentially good. I mean, it's going to be a big rehab. It's been poorly managed for quite a while. But it's just going to be a really good property and really good asset to own. So we used People Finder Pro, our easy skip trace to get the sellers all their information, and then we went and door knocked them and cold called them and started talking to them that way. So that's just eazyskiptrace.com. You can create an account, do your one-off searches there. So that's kind of what we got going on in our life right now. Again, I will do better about getting a weekly show out. I appreciate you sticking around and listening. Hope you have a great week. And here's a quick word from our sponsors.
All right, Real Dealz podcast listeners, I want to talk quickly about our show's sponsor, Ironbridge Lending. If you guys have not reached out to Ironbridge already to talk to them about funding some of your upcoming flip projects, I highly encourage you to do so. I've known the owner of Ironbridge for a very long time. I personally borrowed millions of dollars from them over the years to do a number of different projects, and I can say without a doubt, they are the best hard money lending company I have ever come across, and that is the reason why they are the sole sponsor of this show. I've had a lot of other companies reach out to me and want to sponsor this show, but I just won't do it. I feel like I need to be genuine in who we have sponsoring the show, and it needs to be somebody that I've personally done a ton of business with. So I personally vouch for their ability to be the best, hands down, in the world of hard money lending. You won't find better programs, you won't find better terms, and they're lending or will be lending in over 20 states. So chances are, if you're hearing this in whatever state you're in, it's definitely worth it to check out their website, reach out to them, see if they're lending in your state, and if they are, I would absolutely encourage you to do business with them. Another very cool thing to note is that they have a program for most rehabs where you can actually borrow up to 90% of the purchase price. Now, this is given the fact that you are actually buying a deal, which if you're listening to the show, that means you probably are. But if you have an actual deal on the table, they'll fund up to 90% of your purchase price, and they'll even give you rehab funds on top of that, which means that it only takes 10% down to get into a project, which is unbelievable in the hard money world. So do yourself a favor, reach out to Ironbridge Lending, have a conversation with them, see if they're a good fit for you and for your next project. I can guarantee you that you'll be happy that you did.
What's going on, Real Dealz podcast listeners? We are here for a new episode and an interview this time. So I got Cole Simpson here from South Carolina, does deals there. And funny story, he called me like a year ago off of probably a Bigger Pockets podcast. He wanted to use our cold calling service. At the time, he just probably wasn't ready. We stayed on the phone for the Zoom call, maybe 30, 45 minutes, gave him some advice, gave him some feedback on what to do. I do that with a lot of people. He's the first one that came back. So now he's a Call Magic customer a year later. He's crushing it. He got his license as an agent and started doing that, and is also doing some wholesaling on the side, getting into investing, but has built out a really good agent side of the business to start. So what's going on, Cole?
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So why don't you tell us a little bit who you are, what you've been doing, how old you are, what got you into real estate.
So I'm 26. A little bit about me. So I went to the University of South Carolina and graduated. I actually worked at a church for a few years, so totally not related to real estate at all. And then a few years ago, I guess it was 3 years ago at this point, I bought a shaved ice franchise. So again, nothing to do with real estate, and was kind of just doing that and really got into entrepreneurship, got obsessed with passive income, started reading a ton, read a book by Bigger Pockets. I was like, oh, this seems to be pretty good. Then I found Bigger Pockets.
Which book did you read?
I read Chad Carson's How to Build a Rental Empire, basically, or something like that. And
was it good?
It was really good. Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was just, again, it was like the basics idea of like, you can own a house and it pay you money.
Yeah.
And that can cover your costs. And I was like, that's a great idea. I just didn't know any of this stuff. And so started doing that. I found these 4 houses for sale in Columbia, South Carolina, which is where I was living at the time. And they were a really good deal. And I worked with a lot of college students. So I was like, man, I don't know how these people are making money. Like, this is a really good deal. And I ended up not getting those houses. And then like 3 months later, I was listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast and someone talked about wholesaling. And I was like, oh, this was wholesaling. This is what this was. They were wholesaling these. And so I called a guy. His name was Andrew Lucas. And I was like, you're a wholesaler? And he was like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. I want to work for you. Yeah. And so I worked for him for about 8 months, did that, had some success, moved up to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then became an agent, hooked up with some people here, started doing that, talked to you, and then started doing kind of some of the agent stuff and the wholesale stuff. So that's me in, a minute.
So what have you done in the last 12 months?
Yeah, so the last 12 months, so as an agent, so I became an agent in January, so whatever that looks like, and I'm on track to do about 10 million in sales. That looks about like 25 to 30 transactions.
Okay.
I'm doing about $1 million to $2 million a month at this point.
Okay.
And then kind of ramping up. So I did wholesaling basically for 8 to 12 months last year, and then stopped for about 6 months as I became an agent, and then started to wholesale again. And so I've done 5 or 6 wholesales in the last 12 months, basically.
Nice.
I'm starting to pick that up. So trying to figure that out. And
okay. So why don't you talk a little bit about your agent side? What did you do to ramp that up?
Yeah.
And then and then we'll talk about wholesaling side.
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked with a girl named Shelby Osborne, and she's out here in Charlotte, and so she started a team. And so kind of the way we connected was I heard her on the Bigger Pockets podcast, and so I just DM'd her, and I was like, hey, I heard that you're an agent that works with investors. I didn't know that you could do that as an agent. Like, I didn't know that. I mean, whenever I thought of real estate agent, I always thought of the really nice 40-year-old woman that talks about the kitchen, and it's just like, that's just not me. That's great. Yeah. And so me and her and then her partner, Michael Glaspie, ended up sitting down and talking, and they just taught me how to work with investors, basically, and helped me learn how to do that, do BRRRRs, do a lot with Airbnb just because the returns are really high, so it's the easiest one. And just started figuring out how to prospecting. I'd already done some wholesaling, so reaching out and finding clients wasn't that hard. It was honestly easier to be an agent because it's like, I don't even have to find the property. I just have to find you, what you're looking for, So did that. It was a lot of just messaging people on Bigger Pockets and going to conferences. And after a while, people are like, oh, you know what you're doing. And it's like, maybe, yeah. And you just kind of
I still don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, same. So that's kind of what that looked like. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. So then now you've done some wholesale deals. Why don't you talk about like how did you get them? Kind of what's your average assignment fee? What kind of houses you finding and doing?
Yeah. So kind of, and this goes back to why I reached out to you. So originally when I was wholesaling, I was working on Columbia, South Carolina, which is just a super different market than Charlotte, North Carolina. So Charlotte's like 2 million people. Everybody knows their house is valuable. And so I just wasn't having a lot of success wholesaling. I was like, and a lot of it probably was me and not knowing what to do, but direct mail just wasn't getting it done. And so most of my wholesales have actually been with basically partners bringing me deals and then me helping them find a buyer. So I've done one in Jacksonville, Florida. Did one a few in Columbia. Did a few in North Carolina. But they've all been kind of basically virtual wholesales. And now I'm just starting with the call center stuff, starting to do more in Charlotte. So I think we've got 2 right now under contract. Hopefully those close. But
not bad. When'd you start? September, October?
Yeah, it's been a month. I think I'm like
nice.
36 days in or something.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Lead flow good?
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, so I've got 2 people. We're averaging 5 to 6 leads a day, and we're doing I've got like 6 leads right now that I think will close in about a month. So
nice.
I mean, those numbers are great for me. So
yeah, it's good ROI. What do you have? 2 callers, right? 2 callers,
Yep,
and you got a
2
leads
callers.
manager.
Yep.
So what you're paying $3,400 plus $2,000 for the leads manager, so you're $5,400, and then you got some data costs in there. I don't know how much data do you buy?
So I just tried to buy a lot all at once. So I bought, because I wanted to get it as cheap as possible. So I bought like 120,000 records.
Nice.
I think
So you probably, what'd you get? 8 cents for that?
Yeah, something like that.
8 cents.
Yeah, I think I was all in like 25, basically, more
Okay.
or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not bad. So what are those deals that you got under contract? What do they look like? The 2 that you...
Yeah. So one is a wholesale in Charlotte. It's a suburb. Matthews, North Carolina. We'll probably make about a $10,000 assignment fee on that. That should close the beginning of the year. Another one's very similar. It's in Huntersville, different area, $10,000. And then the other 3 are all listings.
Okay.
And they're all 400 to 500. So you'll make 3% kind of on those. So 12 to 15K each. So, worst case scenario, about 56K if they all close.
Not bad. Not bad for the first month.
Yeah, I don't know that they'll all close, but
Yeah, you never know.
Well,
but yeah,
right.
well, I mean, we're doing the same thing. So we started, we've talked about before. We put what we call our SWAT teams that we're using internally in started in Houston. Now we're in San Antonio and Dallas. But we we're not sure if we got lucky, but we locked up like 3 deals in the first 10 days. It was freaking amazing.
That's awesome.
And then now we've got some other ones locked up, but the San Antonio and Dallas, those we just started those, but it's we're talking like, are we profitable? We're kind of profitable. It just takes time to build this stuff up, and so getting stuff right off the bat just makes you feel so much better about your life.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that you know this stuff, but whenever I do a new lead generation tactic, you got to give it 90 days because it's just like,
which I would even say 60, or not 60.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 6 months.
Yeah.
6 months.
No.
Yeah.
And the way I talk about it is like, and I've only been doing it for 18 months, so maybe that's part of it, right? But 90 days for me is like, do I have any traction at the 90-day mark?
Yep.
If I have none, I don't even have to have a deal necessarily, but if I have no traction, it's like, okay, well, let's start talking about this. But at 90 days, it's like, okay, I feel like I'm starting to get good at this, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So that's exciting. Are you married?
I am, yeah.
Nice. Kids? No kids?
No kids, yeah. So my wife and I got married young, and she's a physician assistant, so she makes the real money while I go.
So she's
she's
PA. Nice.
Yeah.
How old are you?
26.
26. So she's same age?
She's 25. So yeah.
Okay,
basically.
so she did just graduated then.
Yeah, she's like a year in. So.
Nice. Good. Yeah, good for her.
Yeah.
So she lets you. She's like, hey, I'll float you for a while, where you go hopefully try to make us wealthy.
Yeah, so basically, kind of my joke with her was, so PA school's about a 3-year program, and so for 3 years she made no money. So I worked and made the money, and when she graduated, I was like, okay, I want 3 years now.
Gotcha.
And to figure out what I want to do. And at the end of the 3 years, if I haven't figured it out, then I'll go get a corporate job and make 70 a year or whatever it is.
Or be a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah, something like that, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm like 16 months into that. So
I think you're doing all right.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're on the right track.
So what has been your biggest challenge? Because I don't get a ton of new guys that I interview. That's really why I wanted to interview is because you are newer in the industry, and you came in. I came in 2015, and it seems like it was a lot easier to get traction with direct mail. Like I only did direct mail for like 5 years up until 2020. Right. And so I just was able to send out, $10,000 in mailers and get 2 to 3 deals that I make 20 to 40 on, right? It just seemed like it was easier, right? Sure. And so you've came in and you've talked about it where you couldn't get traction in Charlotte. You had to go pivot to a different thing. What have you found like that has been the biggest hurdle for you? And then how have you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think the biggest hurdle for me was just like, so started wholesaling and then tried to do it in a different market. So did it in Columbia, had some success, and then I tried to switch markets. And I was working with a guy who'd never really done it in like a big metro area. And so just wasn't really getting traction. And then jumped in with agents who had been doing it and got traction again. So I think the biggest thing for me, and what I tell everybody this, it's like, if you want to get into real estate, go work with somebody that you realistically think you could be at in 3 to 5 years. Like who's doing what you want to do, and in 3 to 5 years, you could be there. Because in your market, not like, oh, I know a coach who wholesales across the country. It's like, that's great. And I'm not saying that person's not valuable, but when you're first getting started, you probably don't know enough for them to really be helpful, you know? And so it's like, for me, it was super helpful to have that hands-on, like, these people are closing deals in my market. They're helping me. They're walking me through it. They're telling me what I'm good at, what I'm bad at, that instant feedback. And then once I had built even a little bit of momentum there, it was easier to start, doing other stuff as well. But I mean, I think that for me was just getting around people that were doing the things that I wanted to do. And then honestly, I can't stress enough for me how much they got me into deals that I never would have gotten into because they vouched for me. They were like, this guy's good. He's smart. He knows what he's doing. Like, I trust this guy even though he's new. And that went really far for me.
Gotcha. You made a comment in there, like what you're good at, what you're bad at. What are you good at? What are you bad at? Like, what has been your struggle, in this business more so personally on a personal level?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm good at closing. I think that's honestly what I'm good at. Like so from the beginning, like I never didn't have a transaction coordinator. I don't know what that's like. I never didn't have admin because I suck at that stuff. And I've always sucked at that stuff. And so like from the beginning, knowing that and them like helping me figure out, okay, let's mitigate what you're bad at. You can't be so bad at stuff that nobody will work with you because you can't answer an email. But how can you mitigate it so that your strengths can shine? So for me, and the way our team works is like, I talk to people when they're ready to buy or sell, and I close them. And then once they're under contract, unless I'm negotiating something, we don't really talk. Like, I mean, I'm happy to talk to them, but like that's what I do. Like I get you under contract.
Yeah. I understand. Why are you trying to get an acquisitions guy then?
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how to make it not depend on me.
Yeah.
So I mean, scalability. If I'm the only person that can close, it's like, well, you're only gonna grow as much as you can close. And so
let me ask you this then. Let me ask you, how many hours a week you working?
Right now, probably 60, 65.
Take a stopwatch. I read this in the Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. Great book. I read this when I first got started. So read that book because he was an agent, talks about that. Take a stopwatch. Wear it around your neck for 2 weeks. Or put it in your pocket for 2 weeks. Start it when you're doing something that only you can do, that you think you can do on your team. And when you're done, stop it.
Yeah.
And go tally up the time.
Okay. Yeah.
And I guarantee you're going to be a lot less than 60. A lot.
Yeah.
I think what Darren Hardy said, when he was working 12 hours days, and when he got done with the day and he looked at his stopwatch, it was like 36 minutes or something like that.
Wow.
Of what only he could do, because like only he needed to be sitting in living rooms, right? And you're doing those things to outsource, but and are you good with feedback on this? I mean, I kind of
absolutely.
I just want to have a conversation like we were talking, right?
No, that's great.
And so the one thing that I still haven't outsourced all the way, I have Tony that does my single family stuff, but there's just the margins made in the close with people, right? Yeah. And that's what the lifeblood of your business is in so many ways. Like I would outsource everything before I would ever outsource that.
Okay.
In my opinion, like I love the one thing I love about you is your willingness to just go for it and scale and just put everything behind it. Is nice that at such a young age you have your wife that will support you. You have saved the money. You're not probably living any crazy flashy lifestyle. So you're just investing in yourself. And so just I would really think that would be something that I would wait for a while, because if you outsource these things too quickly, it's sometimes it's like a house of cards. I've seen a lot of guys do this. They outsource things way too quickly, and it's just a house of cards.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. That's good to know.
Yeah,
that's a helpful thought.
That would be my thought process. Because that's my value. Because you said earlier you suck at these things. And I would maybe rephrase it that you don't suck at it. You just don't want to do it. It's not what you want to do. Like, I don't suck at some of these emails or these spreadsheets and things like that. I just don't want to do it, right? Because it's not the best use of my time. Right. But sometimes you have to do them. Right. But so, like, how do you just get people that are really good on the support staff? So, because all I want to do is talk to people.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think I'm like just now starting to take those steps. So, like, I've got a transaction coordinator who does so that's super helpful. I just hired an assistant a month ago, and so like we're really, starting to do the training and figuring out like, okay, what can you do? And they're a good friend of mine, so that helps because there's a level of trust that I wouldn't have if it was just a random person that I hired, off of Upwork. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to figure out what are the $10,000 an hour tasks and how can I focus on that and nothing else. And I think, at least for me, what has been surprising is nobody tells you when you build out those systems how much of the not 10,000 hour tasks you're going to have to do to get to the point where you can do the 10,000 hour task. Like this assistant, I'm having to explain like, okay, well, this is how you answer these emails. Let's come up with a template. Let's write all that out. It's like, all that sucks, but I've got to do it so that they know what to do so that I can not think about it anymore. And so that's kind of...
I know. I struggle with it so much.
Yeah.
Like, because I fire off the shittiest emails all the time because I'm always like, go, and in a hurry. And so I'm like very blunt, one sentence responses, like just straight to the point, like no, please, no, thank you. Hey, how's your day going? Right. And it just always kind of backfires. Sometimes it backfires on me.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure all that out. It's definitely a process. And again, like I'm thankful for different people along the road who are helping me figure out what to do and how to do it and how to think. Because I don't think that I have a unique insight. I'm just trying to copy other people, basically.
Yeah. So okay, let's dive into that because I don't know. You said you listen to the show. I talk a lot about mentors, finding people that you add value to, that they want to add value to you. Especially the guys, older people. They're like, oh, I remember being 27, or oh, I wish I was doing what you were doing at 27. I'd love to help you, right? Especially if you're adding value and not just take. So, how have you like compensated those relationships? How have you added value to those relationships, and how have they added value to you? Like, let's just dive in a little bit more because people are. Yeah. I think that people are always like stuck. How do I get started? They're like stuck in analysis. How can I do this? Like, I'm not special. I don't know how to close, or I don't know how to do this. But like, everybody has skills that they can use and they can add value to somebody else. So, how do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the things that I've tried to do, and I definitely wouldn't say I've had this all figured out, but the things that I try to do is like, you don't have to have. So like, let's just use me for an example. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out is like runner tasks. So that's not like difficult. Anybody could do it. Like, hey, go pick up signs. Hey, go mail this. Go like, I probably have 5 to 10 hours of that a week. Now my assistant's starting to pick that up, right? But that's still like stuff that up until a month ago, and even now, I still have lots of things that people could do. You don't have to have any skill set to help me with that. And if somebody came and was like, hey, Cole, I want to help you with that for 10 hours a week, I'm absolutely going to take the hour or two a week of coffee or whatever it is to talk through their deal or however I can help them. So that's how I try to think about it when I talk with people. My first thing is, can I make this person money? Because if I can make you money, not everybody is this way, but most people, they're just going to care more. Like if I'm making you money, so that was how I did it with my first relationships was we were in 50-50 splits. So any money that I made, you made. So it was like, oh, we made a $10,000 assignment fee. Well, they made $5,000. So they care that I'm closing, that, they're committed to that because I'm helping their process. So trying to make them money, try to be persistent, and then try and like solve problems that they haven't even thought about how to solve yet. That's something I try to do is like, oh, I noticed this. You've talked about this a few times. Here's what I think a potential solution is. Would you want me to do that for you? This idea of like not only asking how you can solve a problem, but saying, hey, you've talked about this. I think this is a problem you have. I think I could solve it.
Why don't you give me an example of like when you've done that?
Okay, so like if, for example, let's just say you were like a person that I was really trying to like figure that out with, right? So like if it were you and you were really trying to systemize stuff, like you talked about, hey, dude, I really hate, I can't figure out how to get people to do my emails. It's like, hey, dude, I've got a friend who's got like this whole template system. Would it be okay if I like wrote up a whole template system for you in your emails and just sent it to you? Take 5 minutes for you to read over, and then if you give me edits, I'll like fix them and try and get them into your language and all that. So just that's like an easy thing if you had mentioned that, or if we were talking a little bit before, we were talking about different like recording audios, and you didn't like this, you didn't like that.
Yeah.
So if I knew that and I really wanted to like invest in you, I probably would spend a few hours and be like, hey, I think this is the best one. I think this is going to be the easiest. You want me to set it up for you? So just trying to like listen and then have regular conversations. Like I guess my assumption is that if I'm reaching out for you to help, you probably get that all the time. So you're not in the unique position. I'm in the unique position. So I need to be a little bit more assertive of like, I'm regularly going to be reaching out. If you mentioned a book, you were like, hey, read this Roller Coaster Entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read that book.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to text you and
Yeah.
say, hey, here's what I liked about the book. You know,
Yeah.
so just stuff like that. Like
you're
just
so
showing
spot
that.
on, dude.
Yeah.
You're 100% spot on. Because you know what I get excited? Like, it's funny because I'm still young and I still have a shit ton to learn. But like that's what I did with these guys. But like if you called me and said, hey, listen to this book, or I read this book and like here's what I got for it, what did you like? I'd be like, whoa, cool. Like I want to talk about it, right? Because I've indicated that it was something that was valuable to me at one point, right? And you took the time to say, oh, I respect what you say is valuable, so I respect that enough to go do this thing and say it's probably going to be valuable in my own life.
Right. And if you don't, like, sometimes I don't know what people need. So, like, for example, I don't know what you, but, like, an example is if I was trying to build a relationship with you. So you mentioned, hey, Cole, read this book. So I would say, hey, man, I just want you to know if there's anything I can do. I know that you're probably busy, but if anything comes up, let me know. And then I'm going to come back a week or two later and say, by the way, I read that book. Here's what I think about it, et cetera, et cetera. Just want to remind you if there's anything I can do. Like, just regularly every week or two. You have a podcast, so it's easier because it's like, I can listen to what you say and be like, oh, has a problem there. Okay, let's solve that. Or, oh, we should read this book. And then so it's pretty easy to like keep an ongoing relationship.
Yeah. The other thing that I found to be very powerful in this is with exactly what you're saying is the listening part. Especially being newer, I tend to talk too much. Maybe that's why I have a podcast. But I really try to listen to guys that are, you know, who I want to be friends with. I kind of look at like more so now, like, because I kind of got what I need in a lot of sense, but like, who do I want to be friends with? Great example. I was at my Go Abundance thing, and there's this guy I wanted to be friends with. And he was walking, we were walking in a group, and he was saying, oh, I need to get a new backpack. Like, I really like these kind of backpacks. And it just, I like this size of this one. It was like, he had like a cooler or whatever. So I had my assistant, when I came back, I'm like, hey, we need to go find a backpack. So we went and found one, ended up getting him a golf one. But then I took it a step further because just sitting in a backpack isn't what you should do. I went from his website. This guy's wrote national bestseller. He's got all these lifestyle things that he likes. He's got an Ironman. He's done an Ironman, all these things. So I went and had her find somebody on Etsy to go make custom patches.
Right.
And then I put a custom patch for his name on this backpack with custom patches with room for more of things that like are important to him in his life that he's indicated are important to his life, and then sent it to him. Because and this real, and I taught this to some kids, this Real Dealz logo sign up behind me, actually, I didn't buy it. I had some buddies, Noah and Jeff, to be on the show before, and I was teaching them about gift giving and the power of gift giving. And like if you give a custom gift, they're never going to throw it away because it's custom, right? And every time, even if they don't use it, they're going to set it somewhere. When they see it, they're going to think of you. So like every time I walk in, I see Noah and Jeff gave me this gift. They listened perfectly. I thought I wanted to get one of these, but my wife wouldn't let me get one because they're just not needed. Right. And I show up and I didn't talk about it. They just sent it, and I'm like, this is freaking awesome. And now every time I walk in my office, I think of them, right?
Yep.
So, and I've done this with, you know, guys that own 9,000 units and just, you know, bigger guys. And it's just like, they answer my phone calls. I don't abuse it, but they answer my phone calls.
Right.
And that's really all you're trying to get to at the end of the day, is just to get people to answer your phone call.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the way you said it, even as I'm very new, so I you know, I think I can learn something from every conversation. But like even that idea of like, I don't know, if you look at somebody purely as a business transaction, that's going to come through. So it's like, if I only think, well, this guy's going to help my career, it's like, okay, that's okay that you know that. Like, be aware. But it's like, do you want to be friends with this person? Do you like this person? Like, actually take an interest in their life because they're a person. Like, no matter how big or small they are, and giftology stuff is important. Like,
have you read that book? I was just going to mention that.
I have read it. I need to read it again. It's been a while, but yeah, I have read it, and
It's a
I
good
like
book,
it a lot.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, I want you to think of me every time you look at the sign, whatever it is, right? Because then it's just easier. Everything's easier. So
Yeah. Just don't sound like a photo book, like a calendar sheet or something. I don't know if I like that. Like in your fireman costume.
No, I meant the real deal sign. Yeah, no. It's got to be something worth it. But yeah, no. So I mean, I think that is a big thing. And then just, I don't know, I feel like consistency and follow-up is huge. I just feel like everybody reaches out once, but...
Oh, totally, yeah. I'm just like, and I had this mind-blowing, I do counseling therapy once a week, and it's probably the best week of my life, or my week. It's the best hour of my week. Yeah. And I had a business life coach, Jason Dries. He was brilliant. Yeah, so I hired him for a year. And he was good for like the first 8 months, and then I kind of figured it out, and I just didn't need him because he couldn't take me to the next level. Sure. And then I joined Go Abundance, and then I was just dealing with some personal stuff, so I hired a trauma therapist, and she actually now is a coach, not just a therapist, she's a coach, and she's been doing this for a long time. And not cheap, but she's good. And so I had this, because I've always been the guy that reaches out to everybody. That's just my superpower. I'm the connector.
Yeah.
But I would have these friends or relationships that I would always feel like I'm the only one reaching out. I'm the only one ever reaching out. And they never call me back. And I'm like, maybe it's because they don't like me. And then I would try to keep relationships alive because I thought, okay, it's going to benefit me, financially, personally, or whatever. Sure. But then I started bringing this up, and I'm like, man, maybe just people don't like me. I told her this. And she's like, no, you're looking at this totally the wrong way. Your value in this relationship is you're the one that reaches out. She's like, I'm an introvert. I never call people. And it doesn't mean I don't love them and I don't think about them. I just never call them because I'm always worried that they're busy. So your value to the relationship. I'm like, no. And she said it again. And I'm like, thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? You're right. And so it was like total mind shift and like blow, because like 32 years of my life, I've thought this entire way that people just don't like me. Yeah. And like I have to perform or be this person for them to like me. But that's your value. People get busy. They have kids. They have life. Not that they don't think about you. It's just when they think about you, it's probably they're busy, and they just like so so people need you to connect, right? They want you to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of people, at least in my experience, I'm very similar. I tend to be the person that reaches out, and it's easy to think like, if I didn't reach out, how long till you reach out? Never? You never talk to me again?
I have a buddy that I went to high school with, best friend, all through high school, and we were good friends forever. And finally one time I'm like, fuck it, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm just not going to call him. And he never called me. We haven't talked forever. I mean, I did. Yeah. I've called him a couple times, but then our relationship died, and I'm just like...
Right. And so, I think you got to ask the question, do you value the relationship and why? Yeah. And then it's like, just being okay with, hey, that's my role. And I mean, I don't know, like I think there's a lot of value, at least for me. It's easy to fall into this like, oh, I can't tell somebody that's hard for me. It's like, yeah, you can. If you're actually friends, be like, hey dude, I know that this probably you probably don't mean it this way, but you notice I always call you. Yeah. You never call me. And it's like they're probably gonna say like, oh, well that's not on purpose. I just am busy. It's like, great, okay, just wanted to. Yeah, there's certain friends I'll say that to, and then all of a sudden they'll call me like 2 weeks later. I'm like, oh. It makes you feel really good when you mention that that's when you know the relationship matters. Right. When you mention something like, hey, I might feel this way a little bit, and I get it. I know you're busy. Like, I'm not mad, but just sometimes it'd be nice if you called me. Right. Like, I said that to my grandma, 91-year-old grandma. I take care of her finances. And I was always the one that had to call, and sometimes I just get so busy I would call her for a couple of weeks. And so she's like, so I told her one time, I'm like, you can call me. Right. And she's like, no, you're busy. She doesn't want to bother me. She's like, you're so busy. And I'm like, that's fine. If I'm busy, I won't answer. It's on silent. If it's an emergency, call me twice and I'll answer it. Right. And so what'd she do? She freaking, see if I have one of these saved. She'll call me now, and she'll say, if I answer in the middle of the day, she'll say, I just want to tell you that I love you. And all this stuff. It's the greatest thing. And then she'll like get off the phone really quick. But like, awesome. Let me see if I got, I didn't say it. Oh, why did I delete these? Anyway, so I thought I had one of these saved, but it's basically she'll leave me these messages.
You don't need to call me back, but I just want to tell you that I love you and I'm thinking about you. And she did it. My 91-year-old grandma.
That's
I told her
awesome.
this. And so
That's
it's
awesome.
people will do it, right? And so how have you done, because you sounds like you're connecting with a lot of people. And I know sometimes, like, especially there's a lot of people that go to all these conferences and meet all these people and build all these connections, but then they just fade. And it's like, how do you manage, especially being similar to me, like continuing relationships? Because you can get too many, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, so I think, I think for me, I try to be honest about what I want from the relationship. So just like from the onset, and, depending on what I want, the priorities are going to be different, And then I really do. I know that some people might think this was weird, but like, I don't know if you've ever read the book Never Eat Alone. He kind of talks about, but it's just
I've
this.
heard of it.
Yeah, it's just a networking book basically, but he talks about like using basically a CRM for relationships, and I do that. Like I use a CRM not because I don't care, but just because it's like I will never think about John that I met at a conference one time. But if I'm reminded, then I will be like, oh my gosh, yeah, that was so great. Like I hope he's doing well.
Yeah.
And I'll shoot him a text or I'll call him and, hey dude, how can I help? Stuff like that. So that's how I try to do it. I definitely don't do it perfectly. I'm trying to figure it out.
I went to the GoBundance conference in August, and I started creating a Google Drive sheet of like who I talked to, what do they do we have any synergy, got their information, and I did it for the first day, and then I forgot, and then now I have it, and I haven't reached out. But I'm like, shit, there's 250 people here. I met all these people. Like, how can you even ever remember? Like, you have all these numbers saved in your phone. Like, who is this? I don't even know who this is.
Yeah, and I think I also like go into conferences knowing what I need or knowing what I want and prioritizing 2 or 3 people. So I'd rather have a much deeper connection with one person for 3 days than talk to 100 people and hand out my business card. Like, I'm going to do both, but it's like, oh, man, we click. I actually like you. I think we could be friends. I think I could help you or whatever. I'm probably going to put more time into that relationship than just like, yep, we talked for 10 minutes and you're never going to remember me again, and that's okay. Yeah.
So what are you doing? What's your what is your need? What are you trying to learn? What are you trying to grow right now?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of already hit it, but I think for me, the biggest thing I'm trying to figure out is like, so I've done the agent thing, predominantly the buyer side. I've done a few listings. I've done the wholesale thing. And so I'm trying to do both. I'm trying to do the whole like one-stop shop. No matter who you are, if you're selling your house, we can help you, which is not a unique idea again. Yeah. And it's just different. It's just I'm trying to figure out that skill set. It's a different type of skill set to walk in and, okay, what bucket are you in, and how can I make sure I'm having the right conversation? And it's just I'm trying to develop that and grow that. I mean, I want. So I'm working on a vivid vision right now for next year, and I think my goal at the end of 3 years is to do a $100 million year. And so I'm just trying to figure out what that looks like and how I hit it and stuff like that. But yeah.
Why 100?
Because it's a high number.
It's really hard to do in Charlotte. $200,000 to $400,000 houses.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta move upstream. You gotta move up level. Do bigger deals.
Yeah. So just trying to figure that out. But it is.
But
yeah,
why? 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 Let's dive into it. Why 100? Why is that your goal?
Yeah. No. I mean, I think it was just literally looking around and trying to ask myself what a stretch goal is. So this is my first year. I'm going to do about 10 million by myself. No team, just me. And so it was like, okay, well, I didn't really start like hitting momentum till June.
Yeah.
So for like 5 months, I was just kind of there. So it's like, can I double it? 20 million? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like I can double it if I try. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Well, what about triple it? Can you try? And so the 100 was just kind of like, okay, 3 years. You're not going to be able to do any better next year than that, So it's just like 50 million feels pretty doable. That's only 5 times in 3 years. I can't get 5 times better. I don't know. And so it was a combination of that, and then also if you read The One Thing, they talk about like the goal is not nearly as important as the person you have to become to achieve it.
Yep.
So the 100 million is like, why 100 million? Because it'd be hard. And I would have to stretch, and I'd have to grow, and I'd have to get better at some of this stuff. But in 3 years, if I hit 88 million, am I going to be upset? Probably, because I like to win.
Yeah, I mean, you're still going to be happy. So,
right, but yeah.
So what's your plan then? What's your plan for assets, like owning assets? Like, you figure out that you can make money. Like, what do you know about that? Do you rent a house right now? Do you own your own house?
Yeah, so I just sold all my long terms in Colombia. I only owned a few. And am buying short-term rentals. So I bought an Airbnb in Blue Ridge, Georgia, which is actually hopefully going to go live in the next week or so. And then my goal is to do $30,000 a month passive.
Okay.
And so I think probably in the next year with partners, I'll probably do 5 or 6 more Airbnbs, and we'll be pretty close to that number, hopefully. And then once I hit that 30,000 number. So primarily I'm going to use Airbnbs to hit that number because Airbnbs have the highest cash flow numbers. So it's purely I put in the least amount and get the most out. It's the only reason.
Yeah.
Once I hit that number, the goal will no longer be maximizing cash flow. It'll be maximizing diversification. So I'm going to start trying to play the commercial multifamily game because after I hit 30,000, my next goal is there's no market where it could not be 30,000. So Airbnbs are too volatile. I want... I know. And so then probably there, and I'm even trying to kind of actually start getting to that now. I'm looking at a multifamily, a 30 unit in OKC with some partners that we should do like a 7 to 8% cash on cash as a long-term rental, but we're going to flip it into an Airbnb because we can probably do closer to 25%, but then we can fall back into that long-term rental if we need to. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm thinking is just acquiring assets, hitting that cash flow number. Once I hit that cash flow number, start to diversify. I'm trying to take it one thing at a time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of we didn't do the Airbnbs, but we did rentals. And
right.
Then now we kind of moving up to more of the multifamily stuff.
Yeah.
It's just really not that much hard. Well, maybe rephrase it. In theory, it's not that much harder. If you get an easier unit, like, so we had the 24 unit that we bought in June last year that we thought was going to be this freaking cash cow.
Yeah.
Well, we had lower income tenants and had to turn over a bunch of people during COVID, and we've actually had to do 2 capital calls, small capital calls, but 2 capital calls. We actually haven't pulled any cash flow out of it.
Yeah.
But the benefit is we're selling it 16 months later for $2.9. So
it's awesome. What'd you get it for?
1,685.
Yeah, that feels like a good return.
Yeah, it's a good return, but no cash flow throughout, so it's like stressful, right? And then we bought an 8 unit, which has been going. That's been easy. And then the 25 unit we bought, we had some turns, but it's been easy cash flowing since day one.
Awesome.
But now we're doing some other ones. It's like, so I think the problem is if we were just reliant on, say, that 24 unit when it first came in, we were relying on cash flow, we'd be sunk, right? And so that's the hard part. So trying to have something else to help fund the downside, the risks of it not cash flowing, right?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I think I'm just so new, so I don't want to like commit too hard to one thing. It's that weird balance between like I'm entrepreneurial, so everything sounds fun to me. Everything sounds fun. It's like mobile homes, oh, that sounds so fun. Self-storage, oh, that sounds everything. Jeez. But at the same time, the way you get good at stuff is you focus. And
the next hire you probably need? You need a Chrissy. And so when I say that's my wife, so she works in the business with me, and she's the leash. We call her the leash. She's this CFO. She's COO. She runs everything, but like that's what took me. I was late because we were having a conversation, and she's putting the leash on me. But really, when I talk about this with my dad all the time, my dad's a genius. ADD is all get out, but a physician. If he would have just done real estate, I'd been a trust fund baby. If he would have just been a doctor, I'd been a trust fund baby. If he would have just done his internet business, trust fund baby.
But he did all of them.
But he kept doing all these things, and I'm not a trust fund baby by any long shot, right? But if he would have had a Chrissy or a business manager or a management or like an executive assistant that runs your life but understands
like an integrator,
business,
right?
An integrator. You need an integrator. Yeah. And so like that might be your next hire because you can have guys like you and me, we have 100 ideas a day, and they all sound really, really good.
Yeah.
Until you start trying to do 100 different ideas, right?
Yeah.
And then none of them get done because and I am getting paralyzed because I don't want to do the admin work to get to that deal, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of so for me, like the things that I'm focusing on are agent stuff, agent wholesale, like building out the listing wholesale thing, like that. That's my 80%, like, or 20, whatever it is. Like that's what I'm doing, and if anything else takes from that, it's like it's got to be no right now. And then as far as investments, it's Airbnbs, and it's like that's what I do. I do those two things. If something fell in my lap, I wouldn't say no.
So you said you had partners in the Airbnbs. How are you structuring those deals, and like, what are you doing with those?
Yeah, so we're kind of figuring out. So the first one I bought, it was just me, so it was easy. There wasn't any structuring. But the second one, basically what we're doing, so the cool thing about Airbnbs is they use a second home loan, so you can put less money down. You can put 10%. So you can buy these properties, $400,000, but you're only in 60, which is ridiculous. So what we're doing is basically I'm finding the deal and I'm running the deal and I'm putting in less equity and they're funding the deal and getting the mortgage on their name, and then we're writing up an operating agreement.
You splitting it 50-50 then, or?
Yeah, so they're putting in more. I'm putting in some money, but we're splitting it 50-50. Yeah.
How much? What percentage of the money? So out of that 60, how much are you putting in?
It depends on the person, but I would put in probably close to 30%.
And you're still giving up 50% of the deal and doing everything?
I'm getting 50%. Yeah, at least right now.
But you're doing everything.
Doing everything right now. Hopefully the number keeps going down, but
yeah,
I don't want to get too greedy.
No, and there's a point where it's like, I gave to my parents and some other lenders for the first couple of years. I gave, they'd fund everything, but I give them 25% of the deal. But so it ended up working out sometimes 12 to 15%. Interest or what annualized interest is what it ended up being. But like I did one deal where we bought it for 69. My parents paid for it. I turned around and sold it 8 days later for 105. I ended up writing my dad an $8,000 check and giving his money back in 8 days. Like, not a bad deal, but I was happy to do it, right? Because, we all won. And so, people get really focused on early on of like, oh shit, these guys are making all this money. Who gives a shit? You're making money too.
Oh, yeah, I want them to make money. If they make money, they keep using me.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of my thought is like, for example, I'm looking at a property right now with a guy. It's 1.3 million. So we're going to be all in about 150. And so it's like, maybe I could really push it and do 80-20. But this property we think is going to grow as close to 200, which means it's going to net close to 110. We're going to be all in 150. So we're each going to make $55,000. So he's going to be in 105. So he's going to be making a 50 or 60% return. And I'm going to be in not 35. So I'm going to be making a 100 something return.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, maybe I could get more, but do you know how much easier it's going to be with him the next time?
Exactly.
Like, let's do 80-20. Let's do 80-10. Let's you fund it. Because it's like, you're making 60%. You're not doing anything. What are we talking about? Like, so I like to earn it. I don't, it's easier for me. And then if I had done more, I probably would feel like I already have earned it, but I haven't. So it's like, I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Exactly. Yeah. What's that deal?
That deal? It's just in Florida. It's just some Airbnbs that we're looking at in Florida.
Oh, like a package?
Yeah. No. One property.
One property?
On the beach. Yep.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And that's the weird thing about Airbnb is like you can find these properties. This one's off market, but you can find them on market and they do really well, which is why I started selling them as an agent because it's like, you want a 30% return? No problem. Let's do it.
Do you feel like regulations could play a factor in this? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm seeing people like, so in 2020 when COVID hit, I had buddies that lived in Scottsdale and they're doing Airbnbs and they knew a bunch of people doing Airbnbs and these people started dumping their properties because they were basically upside down because they're, they couldn't cover their monthly nut on a regular renter.
Right.
And so, because like it doesn't cash flow as a regular. So, are you looking at this if I put a regular tenant in there that it will cash flow or at least pay my mortgage, or how are you protecting yourself if something changes, right?
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, and this is kind of some of the like high risk stuff that we're trying to figure out. So we buy in areas that have set rules, which helps. We buy in areas that performed well in 2008 and COVID, which helps. But a lot of it is, so for example, I have a client we bought in Charlotte, Airbnb. He's making about a 22% return, which is great. But we bought it in January, or not quite January, beginning of the year. And so, like, he talked about his big question. I mean, we looked at a lot of houses. His big question was, like, what happens if the market changes and I can't Airbnb anymore? I said, well, it's not going to cover the mortgage, but our exit right now is the sell. Also, rent growth in Charlotte is crazy.
Yeah.
So right now, and he does very well, so he knows this. He's predominantly, even though it is cash flowing, it's predominantly a long-term wealth play for him. It's like right now, the long-term he'd pay like $100 a month.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the worst case scenario? Let's play it. It's like,
Yeah.
Can you afford it? Can you afford $1,200? It's like, yeah, I can. It's like, okay, well, this is going to be worth more in 3 to 5 years. I don't care what the market's doing. It will be worth more in Charlotte. I promise. I know. I didn't go through 2008.
I would not. I would be very careful as an agent making promises. Anybody
Yeah.
in this business, I make no promises.
And sorry, I said it incorrectly.
Yeah.
The way I said it is we have no reason to believe it wouldn't. It would be, nobody is suggesting that it would not. And so that's the.
It's funny, my wife and I were just talking about this, and I talk about this with my buddies all the time. What's the 1%, right? So and my wife just made a really good point when we were just talking. Looking back at these crashes, leading up to them, people didn't know they were going to crash. Now,
Sure.
some people might have known. Like, there's a couple of guys with the housing market in '08. There's probably some guys that, thought that it was going to crash on that stock market crash or all these things. But hindsight, you're like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense why it crashed, right? But
Sure.
leading up to it, it's so hard to predict this. Like, we're in a longest bull run ever, right?
Right.
Stocks are going up. Inflation just I saw hit 6.3% today.
It's crazy.
Like, I think assets are going to go up because just inflation. But I also
They have to,
I think
right?
there's a really good chance for actually becoming reverting back to the mean and going in a deflationary environment.
Sure.
And so, and I talked about that a couple weeks ago. It's like, what's the 1% thought process? And if they got good money, the one thing my thought would be is if I was going to own any Airbnbs, which I don't, is I would just stack. If I'm making 22%, I would just stack like 6 months of cash flow and just
Yeah.
have a way bigger buffer.
And we talk about that.
Yeah.
You should have higher cash reserves.
Yeah.
You just should, because that's the market.
Yeah,
So,
that would be my only thought. But like, and then just, do you have more wear? I don't know this. I don't have Airbnbs. Do you have more wear and tear on them than you would a typical rental?
actually, it's not as bad as you would think because you've got professional cleaners coming in every time. So you're catching wear and tear really fast. I mean, there is some more wear and tear, but places don't get trashed. I'll say it that way.
Gotcha.
So it depends on maybe more wear and tear than like a typical than you would if this specific house rented out, because the people renting this house would be higher income, but probably less wear and tear than like a 1% rule, 2% rule house. Like, no, those houses are getting trashed, at least in my experience. Not always, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you see the market getting saturated? Because I hear so many people talking about Airbnbs all the time.
Yeah, I mean, so not yet. I mean,
what's your experience been on like nightly rentals? Like how full are you? And like, do you have it? You have your own, or you just do that first one?
yeah, this is my first one that I own.
So what about your clients? Like how many nights are they booked?
Yeah, so we run my clients are averaging between 70 and 90% is the answer.
Gotcha. And is that without dropping like prices to be competitive? Is that sticking with the price, or is that?
Yeah, so we do a few things, but that is hitting the number that we also run numbers pretty conservatively. So the other thing that we do is whenever I talk to a client, so let's use Florida property as an example. Hey, this should gross 200 to 250. Okay, but what's it have to gross for you to cover your costs? 95. It has to gross 95. So it's like, that's the other part of, and maybe I'm more willing to play that game. It's like, oh, so if it grosses less than 50%, 40-something%, I'm still covering costs. It's
Gotcha.
like, okay, well, I'm okay with that.
So you're running it like a hotel would run their numbers, like, because they're not 100% occupied all the time. They're probably, pre-COVID, they're probably, you'd see these ones probably 50% occupied. But they only need to, like, there's a certain metric, like they need so many days to break even. They need that room to be rented so many days.
Exactly. So, like, for example, we always give you a break-even number. And so, like, I think for this Florida property, my break-even number is like 8 days a month.
Okay.
Now, it's higher. It's a more expensive property. So it's like those numbers. It's a high nightly rental.
What's it going to be?
probably like $900 a night. I mean, it's like a 16 bed.
I paid freaking. We went with Tucker and some buddies to Bend, for a ski trip weekend. I think we paid $1,200 a night for it, and then we hired a chef too. So, but it was perfect. Split between 3 guys or 6 guys. It was fine.
Right, and that's kind of how I try to explain it to people. Is like, oh my gosh, that's so expensive. It's like 16 people can stay there.
Yeah.
That's $70 a night.
Yeah.
That's not expensive. That's great.
Yeah.
I feel great about $70 a night. So,
and everybody's in the same spot. Right there. That was the great thing about it was like
convenience.
The hiring the chef was just an idea. Here we go. Idea. If you could pair it with a chef, like if you could partner with a local chef, because that was probably the best part of that experience. One, the house was really nice, but the chef, because we never had to like get in the car and go drive into town and go get food. We never had to so we literally got to sit there and talk. They'd bring out appetizers. They'd be like, what time do you want dinner? We'd say, hey, we want dinner at this time. And then we'd go we'd move from talking from the living room to the dinner table and never stop the conversation. So there was really good flow in the conversation.
Yeah.
And building the relationships. And then it was like $3,000, $3,500 for the chef. But it's like 6 guys. If we would have gone out to eat and all that stuff, we probably spent way more. Then you don't have to go grocery shopping because they would also cook breakfast for us. So you don't have to buy all these groceries that you never use. Everybody goes on vacation. Oh, I'm going to buy all these groceries.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I mean, this goes back to Airbnb. It's like, Cole, do you think Airbnb is going to be working in 10 years? I don't know. Probably at some capacity, but I don't know. But I don't need it to.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to diversify as fast as I can.
Yeah.
So it's like, if in 5 years Airbnb stops working, it's like, cool, we'll sell the properties. Like, I'm getting my money back in a year and a half on these properties. So it's like, even if I'm quote unquote selling at a loss after 3 years, it's like, but you didn't really sell at a loss because you doubled your money.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. It's more like, we're getting a 60% return, we're getting a 57% return. It's like, cool. Okay, so can we hold it for 2 years? Do we feel good about this for 2 years? And like you said, just trying to be honest about the risks on the front end. It's like, yeah, if this pops, it's going to hurt. You got to be ready for it. Like, you got to be able to hold it. This is what worst case scenario is, stuff like that. We try to mitigate that as much as we can with all the information we have. We're not trying to I'm not trying to gamble, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you got to take risks.
Totally.
So.
Awesome. Man, I love it, dude. Super excited to have met you. I'm so glad you came back. I was excited for like 2 weeks after that. I told everybody. I was telling Tucker, I'm like, man, somebody finally came back after 45 minutes. Because you wouldn't believe how many people I'd spend 45 minutes on. And then I'd be like, hey, if you do this plan that we laid out that you said is obtainable to get yourself, call me in 2 months and I'll give you another free hour. And you can ask any questions. One person.
No, I mean, not to hype you up too much, but it really was. I mean, it was exactly what I needed both times. Like, the first time I called, I didn't know it. I was trying to figure out answer to my problem, and it was like, and you were pretty straightforward. It's like, I just don't think you're there yet. And I was like, okay, that's fun to hear, but it is what it is, And it's like, I didn't know it at the time, but I wasn't. And like a year later, it's like, okay, cool. Now, knowing what I know, I wasn't there. I'm glad I didn't make this jump. I wouldn't have been able to convert these leads. And it's like, I'm in a way better position now. So I'm excited about it.
And just from a business owner's standpoint, like, if I would have taken your money that you spent, which you probably didn't have back then, and say, give me this money, and it doesn't work, and then all of a sudden you fail, right? Then I don't keep you for a long time. Now it's like, you're like, I can stroke you a check, no problem. Like, you're like, I bought all the more data up front, right? And so it's like, now I don't need it to work right this minute. You're not stressed about it. And that's the hard thing with marketing is people start out spend too much, or they spend too much on coaching, and then they're like pressing, and then you just can't do anything if you're pressing all the time.
Yeah, and you can't always do this, but I've been able to so far. I always try to spend money I've already made. So it's like, well, if this doesn't work, it would be really frustrating, but I've already made the money. Like, I'm not.
Yeah, we're still living on house money. Our first $200 that we put in. We put $200 into this thing when we started, and that's it. House money since then, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to stay net positive, not trying to have to dip into the savings. So
awesome, man. Where can people find more about you? I don't know what you're got if you're on social media or things like that.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram and TikTok. JCS Chariot. So that's just my initials, and then I do Chariot in all my businesses. It's kind of a homage. I don't know the right word, but a nod to my dad. And so.
Sorry, I'm looking up on TikTok. Sorry.
No worries.
JCCS Chariot.
Chariot. Yep. That's it.
CHAR.
RIOT.
Gotcha. Nice. Oh, you follow me.
I follow you.
I know. I gotta get back on that. I shot like 40 TikToks. I have them ready, like they're ready to go.
Yeah.
I've been so busy that, and then my content guy was super busy, and so my wife's getting involved and just like trying to plan it out a little bit better. So I got all these things loaded, ready to go, and I'm like, it's freaking frustrating because it's like you grow momentum and then it's like stop.
Yep. No, it's hard. You gotta. I mean, talking about marketing, social media is one of those things where it's like, we're going to be doing this for 2 years and then we're going to start seeing results. And that's just, you got to be okay with it. Or that's at least my mindset.
Seriously.
And then I'm actually in the process of starting a podcast. So I think we're actually going to do our first recording tomorrow. And that's going to be called Simply Simpson. I'm sure the information will be on my Instagram and TikTok. But, and just be talking to people about business and finance and real estate and kind of how they're doing it. Trying to break down in like the simplest steps. Hey, how do you wholesale in 5 steps? And trying to help beginners, basically.
Nice. My metrics, I actually get better listen through rates doing solo shows.
Oh, wow.
Way better. Way higher listen through, all the way through listen through. Almost double. Like I'll get 80% a lot of times on just my solo shows, all the way through. Maybe it's because they're shorter because we get these ones kind of go longer, but even in the front end, my listen through rate's about double almost. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, so
that's crazy.
It's the thought process. Like, then the guests, like Brandon moved the needle a little bit,
sure.
but like really not as much as you'd expect because these guys have been played out. These guests have been played out in a lot of sense. Even the high name guests that I've had, like Kevin McElroy, the Carlos and Sal, guys, they don't move the needle that much.
Yeah, I mean. I went to a conference and they just basically hammered it into us like, if you're not making content, then you're an idiot and you need to start making content. And so that's kind of why we're doing it. It's just like, I haven't been on that many podcasts, but it's funny because every time I go on a podcast, I make thousands of dollars because somebody reaches out to me and we end up closing a deal together. And it's like, wow, that was not that hard.
Yeah, my best lender, maybe not my best financial wise, but like for amount of money. But my favorite lender, he called me. He was the only, like I had a bunch of people reach out on my first bigger podcast interview a couple of years ago. Okay. And he reached out to me, ends up becoming a lender for me. He's an attorney at Titleist, like Kushnet. Awesome. So he's like a second command. I get free golf clubs. Every time a new set comes
That's
out,
awesome.
I get everything for free. I make a phone call. Hey, Randy, I need a loan for, here's the address. He's like, great, I'll send the docs over. He'll even, because he's a lawyer, so he'll do the note and deed of trust.
Love that.
I had another one. He has money in one of our deals, and she's like, oh, I got a friend. I've never even talked to this lady. And I called her after we closed this deal, because they got to close in like 5 days. And I called her and left a message. She never called me back. But like he facilitated the whole loan, everything. And it's like,
that's awesome.
So that one podcast where I'm like, this was stupid. Why did I do this? Wasting my time. Paid off dividends. Not only with a good lender, but a good friend too.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah. So and that's why I have to keep telling myself is like, it's hard. Like I've missed 2 episodes in the last month. I've just been so busy. But it's like, I have to do it. I have to stay consistent. It's just you never know who you're gonna meet, and even if you just don't pay attention to the listens.
Yeah,
for first forever, dude.
I won't. I'll just kind of do it. I mean, honestly, it's like the reason I know you is because of BP.
Yeah, so. Tucker doesn't even tell me how many listens I get downloads because he knows that I'll stress about it. Because I know I went down a little bit from him in the transition, and it's just like he doesn't even want to tell me because he's like, just keep doing it. You're fine. And he didn't want to do it anymore. Hey. He started another show, so.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So
I'm excited. It'll be fun, and we'll figure it out. It'll take a while. We'll be terrible in the beginning, like everybody is. And
get a better camera.
Yeah,
just better camera. Your audio is really good. So anyway, we'll wrap this up. Thanks so much, Cole, for coming on the show. I thought it was really good. I think if you listen all the way to the end, I think you should, especially if you're newer, you got a lot of information out of this. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.